August 1914. A British infantryman crouches in a hastily dug trench near Mons, Belgium, his Lee Enfield rifle aimed at advancing German columns 400 meters distant. The rifle in his hands is not operating as designed. The bolt action, meant to cycle smoothly, catches slightly on each extraction. A manufacturing defect from the Birmingham small arms factory, a tolerance error measured in fractions of a millimeter, the soldier has learned to compensate. He works the bolt harder, faster, using the resistance as tactile feedback for timing. He fires, bolt back, spent case ejected, bolt forward, fresh round chambered, fire again. He maintains this rhythm for 60 seconds, 15 rounds downrange. Every German officer watching through field glasses reports machine gun fire from British positions. There are no machine guns. There is one infantryman with a defective rifle who has learned to exploit its mechanical flaw. The Lee Enfield's reputation as the fastest bolt-action rifle in military service began not with perfect engineering, but with imperfect manufacturing that forced soldiers to develop techniques that would define British infantry doctrine for the next 30 years. The British Army entered the 20th century with a rifle problem that was doctrinal and mechanical. The long Lee Enfield, adopted in 1895, was accurate and reliable but slow to operate compared to emerging continental designs. German Gewehr 98 rifles used a straight pull bolt that some marksmen could cycle faster than the Lee Enfield's rotating bolt. French Lebel rifles, though awkward, could maintain higher sustained fire rates with trained shooters. British military doctrine emphasized individual marksmanship and rapid fire, requiring every infantryman to engage targets quickly at ranges up to 600 meters. Existing rifle designs could not deliver the fire rate commanders demanded without sacrificing accuracy or reliability. The specification called for a rifle that could fire at least 15 aimed shots per minute, that remained accurate after thousands of rounds, that could be manufactured in sufficient quantities to equip a mass army, and that could be operated effectively by soldiers with minimal training. The design that emerged was the short-magazine Lee Enfield, introduced in 1907, but its potential remained largely theoretical until manufacturing inconsistencies forced operational adaptation. The SMLE measured 1,130 millimeters overall length with a barrel of 640 millimeters. The weight unloaded was approximately 4.2 kilograms. It was chambered for the .303 British cartridge, a rimmed round producing muzzle velocity of roughly 744 meters per second with a 174-grain bullet. Effective range was listed as 503 meters for individual targets, though competent marksmen regularly engaged at double that distance. The magazine held 10 rounds in a detachable box, though doctrine emphasized loading via stripper clips with the magazine in place. The defining characteristic was the bolt mechanism. Unlike most military rifles of the era, the Lee Enfield used a rear locking bolt rather than a front locking bolt. The locking lugs were positioned at the rear of the bolt body, near the shooter's face, rather than at the chamber. This created a shorter bolt throw, approximately 60 degrees of rotation compared to 90 degrees for Mauser pattern rifles. Mechanically, this meant faster cycling, but also meant the bolt and receiver had to absorb more stress during firing. The rear locking design was controversial. Critics argued it was weaker and less safe than front-locking systems. Testing proved the design adequate, but manufacturing tolerances were critical. Variations in lug dimensions, receiver machining, or heat treatment could cause binding, extraction failures, or dangerous gas leakage. Early production runs from multiple contractors showed inconsistent quality. Some rifles cycled smoothly, others required excessive force to operate. Still others had bolts that rattled loosely when closed. These variations should have been quality control failures requiring rejection or rework. Instead, they became distributed throughout British and Commonwealth forces as war mobilization overwhelmed inspection capacity. Soldiers received whatever rifles were available and adapted to their individual weapons characteristics. The technique that became known as the Mad Minute emerged from necessity rather than design. Soldiers with smooth operating rifles could cycle the bolt quickly, but had to be careful not to short stroke, failing to fully extract the spent case. Soldiers with tight operating rifles had to use more force, but received tactile confirmation of full extraction and chambering. Training emphasized rhythm over speed. Instructors taught recruits to establish a consistent cycle, fire, bolt up and back in one motion, Bolt forward and down in one motion, acquire target, fire again. The time required for each cycle was approximately 4 seconds for an average shooter, yielding 15 rounds per minute. Exceptional shooters reduced this to 3 seconds per cycle, achieving 20 rounds per minute. The very best, those who had learned to work with their rifles' specific tolerances rather than against them, managed 30 rounds per minute or more. Official testing of rapid-fire capability occurred at Hythe School of Musketry beginning in 1909. Instructors established the Mad Minute standard. Soldiers would fire at a target 300 meters distant for 60 seconds, aiming each shot. Acceptable performance was 15 hits, good performance was 20 hits, exceptional performance exceeded 25 hits. The test became standard for British infantry training and remained so through World War I. Records from 1914 training cadres show an average performance of 18 hits per minute, substantially higher than German or French equivalents. This advantage was not purely mechanical. German soldiers using Gewehr 98 rifles could theoretically achieve similar rates of fire, but German training emphasized precision over speed. French doctrine prioritized bayonet assault over marksmanship. British doctrine, influenced by experiences in the Boer War, required every infantryman to function as a marksman capable of sustained rapid fire. Combat deployment began in August 1914 with the British Expeditionary Force entering Belgium. The first major engagement at Mons on August 23 demonstrated the tactical impact of British fire rate doctrine. German infantry advanced in close formation, expecting to suppress British positions with superior numbers and artillery support. British infantry, outnumbered approximately 3-1, delivered rifle fire at rates the Germans interpreted as machine gun fire in areas where British forces had deployed only rifles. German after-action reports consistently mention encountering heavy machine gun concentrations in areas where British forces had deployed only rifles. Casualty rates among advancing German infantry were substantially higher than anticipated. The British line held longer than German planning had assumed possible. When withdrawal became necessary, British units maintained suppressive fire that delayed German pursuit. This tactical advantage was derived directly from the combination of Lee Enfield mechanical characteristics and trained rapid-fire technique. Individual accounts from Mons described soldiers firing until barrels became too hot to touch, until ammunition was exhausted, until bolt mechanisms seized from heat expansion and carbon fouling. Some rifles fired over 500 rounds in a single day. Failure rates were lower than expected. The rear-locking bolt design, despite theoretical weaknesses, proved remarkably durable under sustained fire. Barrels wore rapidly but remained functional. Extractors broke but could be field replaced. Firing pins cracked, but rifles continued functioning with reduced reliability. The weapon absorbed abuse that would have disabled other military rifles of the period. This durability was partly intentional design and partly fortunate metallurgy. British steel production in the early 20th century was inconsistent but generally over-engineered for safety margins. Components that should have been adequate were often stronger than specifications required. Comparison with contemporary military rifles illustrates the Lee Enfield's distinctive characteristics. The German Gewehr 98 was more accurate at extreme range, achieving tighter groups beyond 800 meters, but required approximately 5 seconds per shot for aimed fire. The American M1903 Springfield, based on the Mauser action, was similarly accurate, but equally slow. The French Lebel was faster than the Gewehr 98, but still slower than the SMLE and suffered from an awkward tube magazine that complicated reloading. The Russian Mosin Nagant was robust but slow and required rimmed ammunition that complicated feeding. No other military rifle of the era matched the Lee Enfield's combination of rate of fire, reliability under adverse conditions, and acceptable accuracy at combat ranges. This advantage persisted through World War I and into World War II. Sniper adaptations of the Lee Enfield emerged during 1915 as trench warfare created demand for precision long-range fire. The standard SMLE was not optimized for sniping. The rear sight was crude, effective for volley fire, but inadequate for precise shooting. The stock design promoted rapid shouldering rather than stable prone shooting. Most critically, the rear locking bolt placed the scope mounting position directly over the ejection port, complicating sight installation. British Ordnance developed offset scope mounts, placing optics to the left of the bore center line. This was mechanically awkward, but allowed bolt operation without removing the rifle from the shoulder. Scopes were typically 3x or 4x magnification, modest by modern standards, but adequate for identifying targets at 600 meters. Accuracy with scoped Lee Enfields was acceptable rather than exceptional, but the rate of fire remained superior to other sniper rifles. A British sniper could engage multiple targets in quick succession, whereas German or Austrian snipers armed with Gewehr 98 variants required more time between shots. The manufacturing defects that initially seemed problematic became understood as acceptable variations within a functional tolerance range. Post-war analysis of returned rifles showed that weapons requiring slightly more force to operate had lower parts breakage rates, suggesting the binding action reduced stress on components. Rifles with looser actions showed more wear but rarely failed catastrophically. The design's inherent robustness accommodated manufacturing inconsistency better than precision-engineered alternatives. This was not elegant engineering, but it was effective engineering, prioritizing function over perfection. By 1916, British Ordnance had refined manufacturing processes to reduce variation, but the tactical doctrine built around variable rifle characteristics remained unchanged. Soldiers continued training for maximum rapid fire, instructors continued emphasizing rhythm over mechanical smoothness, and the mad minute remained the standard test of infantry proficiency. There were limitations. The .303 British cartridge was less powerful than the German 7.92 by 57 mm or the American .30-06, reducing effectiveness at extreme range and against hard cover. The rear locking bolt, while enabling rapid fire, was indeed weaker than front locking designs, occasionally failing under proof testing with overpressure loads. The 10-round magazine was excellent for capacity, but the rimmed cartridge occasionally caused feeding malfunctions when loaded carelessly. The offset scope mounting for sniper variants reduced accuracy compared to centerline mounting. The relatively short barrel sacrificed some muzzle velocity compared to longer rifles. These limitations were accepted as trade-offs for the weapon's primary advantage. A trained soldier could deliver accurate fire faster and longer than with any comparable rifle. The Lee Enfield remained British standard issue through World War II, serving in virtually every theater. Production exceeded 17 million rifles across all variants. The design influenced numerous derivative weapons and established doctrinal principles that persisted long after bolt-action rifles became obsolete for frontline service. The Mad Minute tradition continued in British and Commonwealth forces into the 1950s, long after semi-automatic rifles had replaced bolt actions in most other armies. The last Lee Enfields were withdrawn from British service in the 1990s, replaced finally by the L85 assault rifle, but remained in use with various forces into the 21st century. Total service life exceeded 100 years, far longer than any comparable military rifle.
The soldier at Mons with the defective rifle survived the war. His name was not recorded in the incident that established the pattern. He was one of tens of thousands who learned that mechanical imperfection, when understood and exploited rather than corrected, could become a tactical advantage. The rifles that jammed slightly taught their users to work harder. The rifles that rattled taught their users to verify chambering by sound. The rifles that extracted smoothly allowed maximum speed but offered no feedback. Each variation produced soldiers adapted to their specific weapon, and collectively these variations produced an infantry force capable of fire rates that altered German tactical calculations in the war's opening weeks. The Lee Enfield was never the most accurate rifle. It was never the most powerful. It was never the most precisely manufactured. It was simply the fastest in the hands of soldiers who had learned to trust its imperfections.